The radio crackled, but the voice barely registered. Deputy Caleb Hart was already out of the cruiser, boots crunching frostbitten leaves, flashlight cutting through the trees like a scalpel. Dispatch had said disturbance, but the K-9 unit's behavior was off. Knox, his dog, had bolted toward the tree-line, hackles raised. And then the whisper. A girl's voice, raw and trembling. Help me. But no one else was there. By the time Caleb followed Knox to the clearing, what he saw made him stop cold, like the world had tilted sideways. Some truths don't knock. They wait in the woods. The first thing Caleb noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind that rolls in with snow or settles at sundown. This was a silence that pressed against your ears, like something was waiting to exhale. His breath came out in clouds, but he didn't feel the cold anymore. Not really. Not since Knox had stopped at the edge of the clearing and gone still, ears pinned, eyes locked ahead like he'd seen a ghost. The beam of Caleb's flashlight swept forward. Pine needles glistened with frost. Then he saw her, a girl, 16, maybe 17, curled up near the base of a fallen tree. Her skin was bloodless pale, eyes wide, too wide. She looked straight at Knox, not at Caleb, and whispered again, "Help me." That voice, it wasn't panicked. It wasn't even desperate. It was hollow, like she'd said it too many times before and had stopped expecting it to matter. Caleb stepped forward cautiously. "Ma'am, I'm Deputy Hart. You're safe now. Are you hurt?" She didn't answer. She blinked once, slow. Her arms were wrapped tight around her middle. Her jeans were soaked, crusted with dry blood at the thighs. Knox whined low in his throat and sat beside her, gently leaning his weight into her side like he did with trauma victims. "Knox," Caleb muttered, "what the hell did you find?" The girl didn't move when he knelt. Only when he reached for her did her body tense, flinch. That's when he saw the bruises. Neck, wrist, one peeking from under her sweater collar. His gut clenched. "No sudden moves," he said quietly, moored himself into her. He radioed in for backup and a medic, then slid his coat off and draped it around her shoulders. "I need to check you for injuries," he said, careful to meet her eyes. "Is that okay?" A pause. Then barely a nod. He moved slow, hands practiced, deliberate. Old scars, old training. Her wrists were rope burned. Ankles, too. There was something else. Under the collar of her shirt, near the base of her throat. Not a wound. A mark. Tattooed. 3 letters. Faded ink. "RAC. What's your name?" he asked. "Nothing. Do you know where you are?" Still nothing. He tried again. "Did someone hurt you?" That time, her lips twitched. A flicker of emotion crossed her face. Fear, maybe, or fury. It passed too fast to read, but it told him enough. She'd been held somewhere. Hurt. Dumped here or escaped. And wherever she'd been, she wasn't supposed to be out. The wind kicked up. Tree branches groaned. Caleb stood, scanning the woods behind them. His flashlight swept left to right, slow, methodical. Knox didn't move. And that's when Caleb saw the second set of tracks. Smaller boots, deeper prints, leading toward the clearing, not away from it. He followed them for a few yards until they stopped. Just stopped. No return trail. No scuffle, like whoever made them had vanished into the trees. A chill wrapped around his spine. His radio squawked. Unit 3 to 2 status? Found female victim. Conscious, nonverbal, appears injured. Need immediate medical and backup. Sending GPS now. As he sent the location pin, he heard the girl shift. When he turned, she was staring up at the trees, eyes fixed on something behind him. Caleb turned fast, hand near his sidearm. Nothing. No sound. No movement. Just woods. But the girl's face stayed locked in that same blank terror, like she was seeing something she couldn't name. Then her voice, almost inaudible, "He's still here." The ride to the hospital was quiet. She let the paramedics help her, but wouldn't speak. Caleb rode behind them, Knox at his side. He kept watching the girl through the back window. Every bump in the road made her flinch. Every time the ambulance siren wailed, her fingers dug into the blanket tighter. He'd seen this before, in the Marines, and later with domestic cases. The body remembers. Even if the mouth won't speak. She hadn't offered a name. No ID, no phone, nothing in her pockets. Just that tattoo. Caleb couldn't get it out of his head. RAC. He didn't recognize the letters. Not a gang tag. Not local. But they'd been done with a needle, not a machine. Amateur but deliberate. Branding, maybe. He rubbed his jaw as the town came into view. Trees giving way to back roads, then a few scattered farmhouses, the mill, the church. Stillwater wasn't the kind of place that swallowed kids whole. At least it hadn't been. But something was shifting lately. Missing persons. Quiet rumors. No proof. No leads. Not until now. He radioed dispatch again. Any reports of a runaway matching the girl's description in the last 48 hours? Stand by. Crackling silence. Then, negative, nothing recent. Go back farther. More silence. Then a softer voice. Caleb, closest match is over a year ago. Girl named Willa Thorne. Went missing just outside Ashbury. 17. Case went cold. He didn't answer right away. Ashbury was 30 miles east. Close enough. Send me the photo. It hit his phone a few seconds later. The girl in the picture was thinner, younger, with longer hair, but the eyes were the same. Haunted. And the nose, the jawline. Jesus. Knox's ears twitched at the word. Caleb looked out the window. The hospital loomed ahead, pale and sterile in the moonlight. If this really was Willa Thorne, someone had kept her hidden for over a year. And someone had just let her go. Or worse, sent her. He stayed at the ER long after his shift ended. The nurses gave him updates. Willa, if that was her, was dehydrated, underweight, signs of long-term malnourishment and physical trauma. No sexual assault in the past week, but the older scars suggested repeated abuse. She hadn't spoken again. Eventually, he was allowed to sit by her room. He didn't go in, just watched through the glass. She lay on her side, facing the window. The coat he'd given her was folded at the foot of the bed. Knox sat beside him, eyes half-lidded but alert. At midnight, the doctor approached. She'll pull through, she said. Physically, anyway. And mentally? The doctor didn't smile. That's up to time. And her. Is she Willa Thorne? She hasn't said. Caleb exhaled slowly. I'll make some calls. He stood. Knox rose beside him. As he turned to leave, the girl sat up. For the first time, she looked directly at him. Caleb paused. Then, almost too soft to hear, "Don't let them take me back." He opened his mouth, but she added, "You don't understand. I wasn't the only one." That night, Caleb drove home in silence. His cabin sat on the outskirts of Stillwater, a mile past the old railroad bridge. Isolated. Quiet. He preferred it that way. But tonight, the quiet pressed too hard. Knox curled on the porch. Caleb stayed up, poring over case files. Willa Thorne's disappearance. The two other missing girls from the past 3 years. No bodies. No suspects. Just kids who vanished without a trace. Until now, that tattoo burned in his mind again. RAC. He typed it into his laptop. First as initials. Then reversed. Then variations. One had stood out. An abandoned juvenile facility 30 miles south. Ridgeway Adolescent Center. Closed in 2008 after multiple allegations of abuse. Lawsuits. One missing staff member. All swept under the rug. Property bought by a private buyer in 2011. Name unlisted. He stared at the screen. The address was listed as Ridgeway Lane, off Route 11. No public access. Caleb leaned back, heart hammering slow, but heavy. She hadn't just escaped. She'd been released, which meant someone had wanted her found. Or they wanted something worse. And if she was right, if she hadn't been the only one, then whatever was happening out there wasn't over. It was just getting started. The morning came flat and colorless, light smeared in gray through cloud-clogged sky. Caleb barely slept. By the time frost cracked under Knox's paws and the coffee pot hissed its last breath, he'd already packed a duffel. Flashlight, sidearm, body cam, water, an old file folder marked Ridgeway Adolescent Center. Clothes case and faded ink. He didn't tell the department. Not yet. Something about this felt too brittle. Like the truth would shatter if too many hands touched it. Knox watched him from the truck's passenger seat as they turned off the main highway. Route 11 was a bone-white scar through the trees. Narrow, winding, the kind of road that made you feel watched. Ridgeway Lane branched off it like an afterthought. Unpaved, eaten by weeds. The deeper they drove, the worse the air got. Not foul, just wrong. Stillwater woods had always held that haunted stillness. But this was different. Thicker, like the forest remembered something. Half a mile in, the trees opened up, and there it was, the Ridgeway facility. It looked like a place meant to disappear. 2 stories, L-shaped, windows boarded or shattered, the outer fence sagging under rust and decades of snow. The main sign was gone, just a pole and some broken cement. Like no one ever wanted to admit it was here. Caleb pulled the truck off the road and cut the engine. Knox growled low. "Yeah," Caleb said. "Me too." The first thing he noticed inside was a cold. Not outside cold. Deeper. Stale. The building hadn't just been abandoned. It had been vacated. Hastily. Bits of old papers fluttered under his boots. A rusted wheelchair lay tipped on its side in a hallway choked with ivy. Broken glass glittered under mold-covered posters. Respect. Structure. Reform. His flashlight beam swept left, catching names scratched into the walls. Jordan 2007. I'm still here. And one freshened the rest. We never left. He stopped. Something skittered overhead. Not footsteps, just raccoons maybe. Or squirrels. But Knox stiffened. The K9 pad ahead, nose low, tail rigid. Then he stopped in front of a door at the end of the west wing. It was newer than the others. Reinforced. Caleb tried the handle. Locked. He stepped back, aimed low, and kicked. The door cracked open with a groan. Inside was a staircase, stone, narrow, descending below the building. No signs. No light. Just black. Knox hesitated at the threshold. Caleb flicked on his body cam. "We go together," he said softly. The basement smelled like bleach and old metal. It wasn't just a basement. It was a wing. Rooms with padded doors. Steel beds bolted to the floor. Scratches on every surface. More recent than they should have been. And then the hallway veered right. A different kind of door. Heavy-duty steel. Digital keypad rusted dead. He reached for the lock and froze. There were voices behind it. Muffled. A whimper. Then a scrape. He backed up fast, heart pounding. The door couldn't be sealed if there were voices. Not after 15 years. Either someone was in there now, or someone never left. Caleb pulled out his phone, opened the voice recorder, and held it against the metal. Then a different sound. Shuffling. Fast. Right behind him. He turned just in time. A shadow darted left. He unholstered his gun. Sheriff's Department. Come out slow. Silence. He stepped around the corner. Nothing but a shattered observation room. But something had been there. The floor was smeared with footprints. Bare feet. Small. Knox whined and backed up. Caleb lowered the gun slightly. His breath fogged the air. Then his radio crackled. No one should have had the frequency. But it was a voice. Faint. Female. Familiar. Don't let them take me back. His blood ran ice. He ripped the radio off his belt and checked the signal. Dead. No active connection. Just static. Knox started barking. Frantic. Not scared, angry. Then another sound echoed from deeper inside. A cry. A real one. Human. Young. Alive. Caleb bolted down the hallway. Flashlight bouncing. Room after room blurred past, until he reached one with a windowless hatch. Slightly ajar. He opened it slowly. Inside, a girl. 10. Maybe 11. Emaciated. Eyes red from crying. She blinked in the light. Whispered something he couldn't hear. Then she screamed. Knox barked loud enough to shake the walls. Caleb rushed in, knelt. Hey, it's okay. I'm here to help. She shrank back. You're lying. You'll send me back to the ones in the masks. He shook his head. No one's sending you anywhere. What's your name? Tally. How long V you been here? She looked past him. Since the white van. Since my brother stopped answering. He felt the earth shift under him. You're saying you were taken? She nodded. How many more are there? Another nod. 3. Maybe 4. I don't know. They move us. In the tunnels. What tunnels? She pointed behind the rusted cot. There was a panel. He pulled it open. A hole, barely wide enough to crawl through, lined in concrete and blackness. She whispered, they don't use the front doors. Caleb called it in. Finally, left out the girl for now. Claimed he was following up on old records. Got dispatched to ping the coordinates. 10 minutes until backup. He turned to Tally. We're leaving. Now. She hesitated. They'll hear us. No, they won't. He carried her out, fast and silent. Every door he passed felt like it watched him. At the truck, he buckled her in, then radioed in again, urgent now. Multiple victims. Possibly still on site. Need extraction, full team. Knox wouldn't get in the truck. He stood facing the woods, tail stiff. Caleb called for him. Knox didn't move. Then the dog growled and bolted into the trees. What the hell? Caleb slammed the door and chased after him, gun drawn. He followed for 30 yards until he found him, at the edge of another clearing. There, standing in the open, was a man in a mask. Not a ski mask. A plastic, expressionless face, crudely painted with a smile. Just standing, watching. Caleb raised the gun. Hands! Now! The figure didn't move. Hand where I can see them. Knox barked again, louder this time. Then the man walked backward into the trees. Disappeared. No sound. No crack of a twig. Gone. Caleb stood frozen, arm extended. Something in his body said, don't follow. He didn't. He and Knox returned to the truck. Tally hadn't moved, but her eyes were fixed on him when he got in. They're watching now. He didn't ask how she knew, because deep down he felt it too. Back at the station, everything cracked. Willa had fled from Ridgeway. That was certain now, but she hadn't just been a victim. The files they pulled from her blood work showed another detail. Traces of tranquilizers, not street drugs. Veterinary grade. Animal sedatives. Same compound used to subdue dogs. Why use that on a girl? And then came the bigger revelation. Willa Thorne's birth certificate. She was listed as deceased. Died at age 6. Caleb stared at the coroner's note, disbelief knotting in his chest. This wasn't a missing girl. This was a ghost who'd never been reported missing because she wasn't supposed to exist anymore. He looked at the security footage again. Willa's face in the hospital, murmuring, don't let them take me back. And he understood. She'd been born into it, raised inside that place. RAC wasn't just a name. It was a system, maybe a cult, maybe something worse. But whatever it was, it had power, and it knew he'd found a crack in its foundation. That night, as Caleb locked up the station and checked on Tally, now asleep in a guard room, he saw something tucked under his windshield wiper. A photo, grainy, black and white. It showed him and Knox walking through the woods near Ridgeway. Timestamped 2 hours ago. On the back, one line written in ink. You went too far. He looked toward the tree line. No movement. No sound. But the wind carried something faint. Help me. And this time, it wasn't coming from a voice in his head. Rain began at dawn. Not heavy. Just enough to make the roads bleed and the world turn gray again. Stillwater's trees shimmer with waterlogged silence as Caleb parked behind the hospital and stepped out, hand on his hip, eyes scanning rooftops and alleyways. The photo still sat in the center console, curling at the corners. He hadn't told anyone. Not dispatch, not his chief, not even the feds he called from a burner that morning. Because this wasn't about the law anymore. It was about who the hell had been watching him. And why. Inside the building, the nurse on duty barely looked up. Willa, if that was even her real name, was still in the same room. Door locked. 2 deputies posted outside. But when Caleb opened the door, the bed was empty. The room showed no signs of struggle. No broken glass. No blood. but the chair near the window was warm. The 4 had been carefully removed, the hospital bracelet snipped with scissors. On the pillow, a note written in pencil. 7 words. Don't follow me. You'll just die. Caleb stared at it until the words blurred. Knox growled low behind him. How? He whispered. How the hell did she get past 2 armed guards? One of the deputies swore. We were right here, Hart. She never walked past. Then she had help. And someone with access. The security feed confirmed it. At 3:17 a.m., the hallway camera glitched. A full minute of static. Then nothing. When the feed returned, the room was empty. No trace of the girl. But 2 floors down, someone had used a freight elevator with a key card that didn't match any hospital staff. Back door. Service exit. Van waiting. A van like the one that took Tally. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hart. A voice deep and steady. You weren't supposed to look. Who is this? She's not who you think. None of them are. Then the click of a hang-up. Caleb stared at the screen. Then he ran. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He just drove. Back toward Ridgeway. Faster this time. Reckless. Knox stood on the passenger seat like he could sense it, that everything was coming to a head. The road seemed narrower now. Hungrier. When the facility came into view, he wasn't surprised to find the front gate open. Someone had wanted him back. Caleb stepped out of the truck, flashlight in one hand, gun holster but ready. The rain had stopped. The silence returned, thicker than before. Inside, the place had changed. New drag marks on the floor, lights flickering that hadn't flickered yesterday, and scrawled across the hallway in black spray paint. They go back to the earth. Knox hesitated at the threshold. You don't have to come, Caleb said, but the dog followed anyway. The tunnels were colder this time. The panel behind the cot in Tally's cell was still open. Caleb crawled through, body cam on, flashlight gripped between his teeth. What he found on the other side stole his breath. A lab, or something like it. Chalk white walls. Cages. An examination table. Photos pinned on corkboard. Not just of Willa. Of Tally. Of others. Kids. Some younger. Some no older than 20. Many had numbers in place of names. And one file, fresh, dated 2 days ago, marked Subject 7, ready for reintegration. The picture was Willa. In the corner of the room, a steel door creaked open. He stepped inside. A man waited. Not masked this time. No smile. Just an ordinary face with eyes like cold nails. You're a trespassing officer, the man said. You took them. They were given. Bullshit. The man smiled faintly. You think we take children off the street like monsters? You think their parents weren't paid? Donated willingly? Forgotten quietly? Caleb felt something twist in his gut. Willa Thorne was declared dead at 6, he said. She was, until we gave her new purpose. What are you doing to them? The man tilted his head. Evolving them. Pain creates clarity. Our subjects are stripped of distraction. We remove identity, language, memory. The weak die. The strong return. Return for what? The man stepped closer. Integration. Influence. They embed. They serve. They obey. Like Willa. The man nodded. She failed, of course. You pulled her out too soon. She still remembered. She begged for help. Emotion is a glitch. We will correct it. Caleb raised his gun. No, you won't. But before he could fire, the lights blew. Total darkness. A scream, sharp human, ripped down the tunnel. Then silence. When the lights flickered back, the man was gone. And standing where he'd been was Willa. Blood soaked her arms. Her eyes were blank, but her hands trembled. I didn't want to come back, she whispered. They fled together. Caleb, Knox, and Willa, through side halls, broken tunnels, and emergency exits never mapped. The facility burned behind them, flames licking through the upper floors, smoke curling like fingers into the dawn sky. He didn't look back. Willa said nothing the whole way, not even when he wrapped a blanket around her and sat her in the back of the cruiser. Not even when she asked, once, "So, quietly you almost didn't hear, do you believe people are born evil?" He didn't answer, because she already knew. 6 weeks later, the fire was ruled an accident. No bodies found. The facility site was purchased the next day by a shell company out of New York. The files were buried. Willa disappeared from the hospital again, this time without a trace. Tally was taken into federal custody. Caleb never saw either of them again, but the photo still sits on his desk. Him and Knox, time-stamped, and the words on the back, "You went too far." Sometimes he dreams of the tunnels, of faces that don't blink, children without names, a voice whispering, "Help me," over and over until it doesn't sound like a voice anymore. Knox sleeps by the window now, always alert. And Caleb? He waits, because somewhere out there, another girl is whispering to another dog, and maybe next time, no one answers.